friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I'm Jasmine and this is Journal with Jazz. Today I have a pen ink questionnaire. It is part of the 8 pen question tag in the fountain pen community here on YouTube and on Instagram as well. And I thought I would join in along. I'm a little bit late to the train, but I wanted to document this video for myself and just see how my fountain pen journey continues on. This is fast approaching my 2nd year. I'm in my 2nd year. That's part of one of the questions is how did I start? So I definitely want to start documenting how my fountain pen and ink preferences change. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to switch back and forth between me talking and showing the questions on paper. I thought that I would, towards the end, maybe do some other pen related things like showing my full collection, because I do not yet have a full my fountain pen collection video on my channel. So let's get started first with the questions, and that can kind of guide and help me feel where this video is gonna go. I don't know how long it's going to be, but let's start with the first question. The first question is, when and how did your fountain pen journey begin? So when I started getting into fountain pens fall of 2021, I got my first fountain pen in store. I went to Stilo e Style in Rome, Italy. I currently and at the time was living in Italy, so I picked up my first fountain pen when I was able to feel and write with one in store. I was going back and forth with what I was wanting for a few weeks, and I was getting into the question, how did I get into my fountain pen journey? I was being pen-influenced by Amanda Lee Plans on Instagram. She had started her fountain pen journey, I believe, that summer of 2021, if not earlier. And so constantly seeing it on one of my favorite Instagrammers' stories and just talking about it and just seeing her excitement about fountain pens really got me intrigued. And then I became good friends with someone perfectly mediocre planner, and she was using Kaweco's at the time. She was doing calligraphy drills, and myself, having practiced modern calligraphy and hand lettering, I thought that was really interesting, and seeing her use fountain pens where it just glide on the paper so smoothly, and she was using certain pens and certain paper. We are going to get into the second question now, and it is favorite inks in the beginning and what are your go-to inks now? So my favorite inks in the beginning, I started off just buying samples, and I think that's why my ink collection is primarily based on samples. But the first samples I got, I actually purchased from a shop called Pen Outpost. I really don't know if they're still in business right now, because at the time that I bought the samples, they were having like a closeout sale. So I'm not sure if they're still in business. But some of the samples that I really loved and still love to this day from that purchase were Diamond Safari, Colorverse, Brunch Date, and then Wearing Ghoul Cowardly Lion. And what are your go-to inks now? So one ink that I've mentioned time and time again is Diamine Earl Grey. I just love it so much. I think it goes great in any darker pen, even black pens. It gives, you know, a different vibe than just going with black, but it's dark enough to kind of pass as a black ink. It's easily readable, but it's got some special properties to it to be a little more fun than just a black ink. Anyways, moving on to some other inks that are my go-to right now is Three Oysters Americano. It is a really rich brown that I enjoy. And then Lennon Toolbar's Wen Shan Pu Chong Tea and Sesame Oil from Lennon Toolbar as well are ink bottles that I actually have, some of the first ink bottles that I have ever purchased. And they are inks that I go to time and time again to put in my pens. Question number 3 is, how have your ink and pen tastes changed over time? So let's talk about inks first. In the beginning, I thought I really preferred sheening inks, and that was just because of some swatches that I saw, some samples that I received. But when it came to inking up a pen, I found that I didn't really like sheening inks. It was a little too distracting for me. I think because at the beginning, which is kind of segueing into the pens part, I strictly started with fine and extra fine nibs, and it didn't really show the sheeting properties all that much. And so that led me to go to just, you know, the standard, not really flat inks, but a lot of saturation, and showing the different shading in saturation of inks is what led me to kind of go away from sheening inks and really find what I liked about ink properties. So another thing in the beginning with my experience with inks is that a lot of the inks I started with were drier inks, which I didn't know. I thought a lot of them were just the standard inks, and it wasn't until I started trying more samples and receiving samples from friends that I really started to see the difference in flow in certain brands. Some of these things still stay today, and that is at the beginning and now. I really prefer muted colors in inks, so like a faded yellow, or I guess rusty orange isn't really muted, but I really stay away from the bright colors of certain inks. Even with blues, I would prefer a dusty blue, a dusty rose, a dusty lavender, so really muted, subtle colors, things that are soft to the eye. Those are the kinds of colors that I prefer, and they're just the colors that exist in my life, in my wardrobe, so it makes sense that it would also translate into ink colors that I prefer. So same question, but now with pens. How was it in the start and now? In the beginning, I was strictly fine and extra fine nibs. I just knew that if I liked a 0.38 Muji pen, that I would want extra fine and fine nibs. And I did for, you know, the first half of my fountain pen journey, or even up to the first full year of my fountain pen journey, because yeah, I'm well into 2.5 years now of fountain pens. And so that sounds too long. So 2021. Oh, I have lied this entire time. My fountain pen journey started 2022. So fall of 2022, reached fall of 2023. That's 1 full year. And then this fall of 2024 will be 2 full years. So I've got a full year under my belt, and I'm halfway through getting to my 2nd year. So 1.5 years. Okay, now that I've figured out that timeline. So how my preferences have changed is that I really started off like really stubborn. I only want Japanese nibs. I only want extra fine and fine. And that's changed now, 1.5 years into my fountain pen journey. I do still prefer Japanese nibs. I just like the way that they feel and write a lot better. I also really prefer gold nibs, especially 21K. I've now been able to see and feel the difference in the writing experience between 14K nibs and 21K nibs. I did purchase a few steel nibs in different brands, and I don't own any of those anymore. The only steel nibs I own now are my TWSBIs and one Jinhao. And the TWSBIs is because I am using custom grinds on them, and so that allows me to get custom grinds without having to commit and doing it to one of my gold nibs. So that's where my preferences have changed in terms of the Japanese nibs. Getting to the nib sizes, I have a love for medium fine right now. So where I thought I was extra fine and fine, I am now fine and medium fine, and I'm very quickly creeping into medium size now. I am getting custom grinds, and that is the chance to really see a lot of line variation. In terms of pen body and how my preferences have changed, I started out with really slim pens, ProGear Slim. I think I owned about 6 ProGear Slims at one point. I now went down to 2. I have one pen coming because it's a pre-order, and that is a ProGear Slim. I just couldn't pass up on the color. But other than that, I realized with the way that I like to write and my grip and my preferences that I prefer bigger pens. So ProGear is the sweet spot for me. I would really like to, well, I'm getting ahead of myself into the next question. I'll save it for the next question. So question number 4. Are there inks and pens that you have yet to try but would like to? Yes, so many. There are so many inks that I would like to try. That is a little easier for me because I really favor buying ink samples. There were a number of inks that I wanted to try that were unattainable, but somehow I was able to get some of these inks that are very special editions. So right now I am down to 0 specific inks that I want to try. For pens, I feel like my list used to be a lot bigger, but now that I have really honed in on the types of pens that I like and my preferences, my list for pens that I would like to try have gotten smaller as I've kind of crossed off other things off that list, or maybe I just aren't as curious about them anymore. But what I do have on the list of what I would like to try is a Pilot Falcon nib, really any flex nib, but if this combination was a lot easier to get, I would definitely purchase it. And it is the Pilot Custom 823 with a Falcon nib. It is really hard to get. I believe there is only one person, if not a small handful, that configure a Falcon nib on a Pilot Custom 823, and it's only available in Japan. The only place I know that has sold it in the past is Pensacci.com, and at the time that I saw them available, I was very, very new into my fountain pen journey, so I could not justify the price of that. Now, being a year and a half in, if I just had enough patience to save money for a fountain pen and that combination came in stock, I would definitely purchase it. As someone who really likes to have different nib sizes for different headers in my journal, for when I'm writing in my travel journal, I like to have wider nibs for titles, and I would love to be able to own a Falcon nib so that I could make really outstanding headers in my journal with that. Another pen that I've really wanted to try, and it's just because I cannot get over the beautiful stunning colorway, is the Pelikan M400 White Tortoise. I really, really love the body and design of that pen, but I've been told by several Pelikan owners and others who have tried the pen that M400 is similar to a ProGear Slim, and I've pretty much moved on from collecting that size because it just doesn't fit my writing style and my grip, and so that's why I sold most of my ProGear Slims. I've only kept the ones whose colors that I just really cannot get rid of, or if there is a sentimental reason for it. So I just can't justify getting that pen. I found really good prices for the M400 White Tortoise used, but even then it's really hard for me to pull, you know, the trigger on that pen and just purchase it because the size. I'm really worried that I would get it and just kind of like, I told you so and you knew it, so why did you still buy it? So if I could feel it in person, hold it, and test write with it, I think I'll be able to finally move on from that pen and accept that it's not the size for me, versus spending the money on it and then realizing something that I kind of already knew about myself, you know? Another pen that I'm curious about is the Sailor King of Pens.
Hi, Editor Jazz popping in because I am editing this a month after filming, and I have to report I did get to write with the King of Pens, and it is humongous, as you can see in the photo. King of Pen, a ProGear, and then a Slim, but it was so comfortable to write with. It may just have to sit in my wish list for the rest of my life. But I can say that I felt one, held one, and wrote with one, and it was great.
Because I like bigger and fatter pens, I'm really curious about it, though I've been told it's a humongous jump from the Pro Gear. So I'm very curious about just what it feels like. The nib is going to be a lot bigger, so the distance from pen nib on the paper to holding your grip will change a lot, and that could deter someone from wanting to purchase a King of Pen if the nib is too big. So those are some of the things I've been curious about since the beginning of my fountain pen journey, and now a year and a half in. Moving on to question number 5, what is your holy grail pen? So I would say that I've acquired my holy grail pen. It is actually one of the beginning pens of my collection, and it is the Sailor Pro Gear Cafe Crema pen. I talk about this pen all the time. I love it so much. I just love the kind of yellow cream of the body, the brown nib and end cap finial, and then the special finial of a coffee bean. There's not a thing I would change about this pen. This pen is my holy grail so much that I have debated getting a second one of it for a really long time now. I think for a year now. Anytime that I see the person that I bought this from still have stock, I question whether I should get a second one, because should anything happen to this, I would be so sad. I would repurchase immediately to make sure that I had this in my collection. I have this in a fine nib, and right now I have been favoring medium fines for the past few months, that this pen has not received as much love as I used to give it the first year, although it is still my favorite pen ever and it is always inked up. So I've been really tempted to get it again in a medium fine. That's just how much I love this pen. But if I were to choose a pen that I didn't already own as a holy grail pen, I might probably say the Pilot Custom 823 with the Falcon nib, because it is such a hard combination to find. I'm trying to think. When I was writing down this question, it was really hard for me to think of what my holy grail pen is right now, because truly I'm really happy with my collection. Even though I've continued to add a new fountain pen every month, 2 months during this journey. That is a lot of pens. That's why, going into the next question, how many pens do you currently own? I own 16 pens. So at the very end of all these questions, I will do kind of like a rapid fire collection video and show you all 16 of my fountain pens. But 16 is not how many have passed through my home. Let's see. I have had 7 pens that have gone and left, and those include the TWSBI Diamond 580 Rose Gold, a Kaweco Bronze that I sold, and then I sold in a bundle a Sailor Pro Gear Slim Momo, another Pro Gear Slim Kiko, and then a Pro Gear Slim Demonstrator. So 3 Pro Gear Slims, 3, 4, 5, and then the last 2 pens were Leonardo Memento Zero, I believe. My most recent additions are the TWSBI Ecos, because I wanted to try custom grinds, and I am so happy with them. They look so good together too. I also just really couldn't pass up on the colors of these because they are neutral, and I love neutral colors and browns. Okay, let's wrap up these questions so that I can show you a full collection of my pens. Question number 7 is, do you have a limit on pens, inks? Is it a number, a feeling? When do you know that you've reached your maximum? So Do I have a limit on pens? No, not really. I used to have a number. That number used to be dictated on my storage solution. So when I had a 6-pen Galen leather case, I was like, okay, only 6 pens. And then I added more cases and more cases, and it got to a point that I couldn't keep a lot of my inked pens in one place. And so that really slowed me down because I was finding that I wasn't using a lot of my pens because I couldn't put them all together. I couldn't store them all together. I do not have a long-term storage. I know most people on Instagram or YouTube have like an acrylic case with the 3 drawers, and you can fit about 16 to 15 pens in each drawer. So that's a good 45, if 30 to 45 pen case drawer. But I don't have anything like that. I just have pen pouches. The most that this pen pouch, my recent pen pouch purchase, can hold is about 10 pens, which is great, and I love that because I usually have that many inked pens at once. So that's really limited the number of pens that I own. When do you know that you reached your maximum? So I look at fountain pen collecting as a lifetime hobby. I do really hope that I can sustain this long term and slow down on the purchases of my pens. I really hit the ground running in this first year and a half, and now that I have 16 pens, I'm starting to slow down, starting to learn what I like, and so hopefully moving forward I'll be able to be a lot more specific, a lot more not really strict on my pen purchases, but strict in my criteria of what I purchase. Because in the beginning it was really hard because I needed to figure out what I liked, and now that I know, it's been a lot easier for me to say no to Pro Gear Slims, to say no to other models, because I really like what I have now, and I'm learning that I don't want extra fine nibs. I like fine and medium fine, and so because I have the most nibs I have in a pen, the most pens, I don't know how to phrase this question, but I have the most medium fine nibs. I think I have 5 medium fines in Sailors. That's just Sailors. But anyways, that has also slowed me down in buying a pen because a lot of the times some designs only come out in fine, medium, and medium. Some nib sizes sell out a lot faster, and so that has also slowed down my purchases. Do you have a limit on inks? Yes, it's a lot easier for me to not purchase inks or to put a limit myself on inks, and the limit is, again, usually because of storage and space. I try to fit all of my inks in just one drawer because that's all the space I really have to allot towards it. At one point, I think I had 100 ink samples just from purchasing ink samples myself, getting ink samples sent from friends, and so that really put a halt to me purchasing ink samples. I haven't purchased ink samples, I think, in a full year. I've done a lot of ink sample swaps with friends, and that's been really helpful because I'll try some inks, and if it's not to my liking, it just passes through my home and goes to another friend, and it's been a nice cycle of doing that. So the max I ever hit on ink samples was 100. I did a huge mass cleaning of that and somehow got to 50, and so I'm trying to stay around the 50 and under of ink samples. Okay, finally to the last question is, consequently, what would you do if another pen or ink came along? Let's answer the easier question to that, and that is inks. It is a lot easier for me to say no to inks, and so if an ink came along, the easy answer for me is just get a sample. A lot of the times I quickly forget about an ink that I am fixated on or really, really wanting to try. A lot of the times when I want to buy an ink sample, I'd have to add a lot to the cart to reach the free shipping minimum. And so that also deters me from actually buying ink samples. I really, really do not want to be a collector of ink bottles because I know that I could never get through a full bottle of ink times however many of inks that is in my entire lifetime. So that also helps me to not buy ink bottles. Pens, however, is a very different story. Another pen came along. Well, in 2024, quite a number of pens have come along, and if I really want it, I just get it. And that is my problem. Neutral colorways is what gets me. A neutral green gets me the worst because a neutral green came out with Sailor in the Pro Gear Slim. And even though I completely wrote off Pro Gear Slims in my collection, I still purchased it and I'm really excited for it. And I hope that I love the color enough that I will enjoy having a Slim in my collection. So when it comes to pens, it is a lot harder. The colorway is what will really get me. If I love the trim, if there's a nib size that I think I could get to add to my current collection, and the pen body is something that I can match to my current collection of inks or my preferences, then it is game over. It is really hard for me to say no to that pen because I'm a person who likes to match pen bodies and ink colors. So a lot of the times my pens lean towards the muted colors, neutrals, different shades of browns and greens because those are the different kinds of inks that I like to use. So the last thing on how I decide whether I get a pen or not is, does it check a lot of the boxes that I've set for myself? And hopefully it checks every single one, if not a majority of them. So the Pro Gear Slim Sailor that I'm expecting in a very nice neutral green, the only box it didn't check there is that it is it's not a Pro Gear, it's not a larger pen body, it's a slim, and that should have been enough for me to say no and not buy it. But I just loved everything else about it, that I'm willing to give it a try, and if it doesn't work out, I can always sell it. That is a famous last words of mine that gets me in trouble. Is I always say okay, well, if I don't like it, I could always sell it. But truth be told is I hardly ever do sell them because I like it so much. But then a few months later, when I see that I haven't actually used it and I just like looking at it, then I will finally sell it. But hopefully a lot of the pens that I do come across do check my boxes, and if it does and I really can't get over thinking about it, then I buy the pen. So I'm hoping that I can slow down. I'm hoping that these companies start releasing pens and all the things that I don't like so that it's easier for me to say no. So that concludes all of the pen questions. I'm going to end this video kind of with a collection video. So I will show you what my full pen collection is with a little bit of some details about each pen. I'm going to go in order of pens since I've acquired them, if I remember them in the correct order. So this right here is a Sailor Pro Gear Slim. This is in the colorway called 𝘕𝘬𝘳𝘬𝘧𝘳. I actually got this on Amazon, and this has a medium fine nib, but my original one actually cracked at the barrel here, and a dear friend on Instagram, Connie, was really kind to gift me hers. She had had hers for a while, and she told me that it wasn't getting the love it deserved, and so she wanted me to have it, and I thought that was just the sweetest gesture. So that is the very first pen that I own from my collection. My first pen was actually a TWSBI Diamond 580. My next pen after that was a 𝘠𝘠 Bronze, or not 𝘠𝘠 Bronze. And I've since sold both of those. So this is my oldest pen in my collection now. Then next I acquired the Pilot Custom 823 Amber. This I have in a fine nib. I purchased this off of eBay. I will also link the eBay seller. After that, I acquired a Platinum 3776 Century. This one is actually an old model. It does not have the heart cut out in the nib, and it is 18K instead of the 14K that the modern pen is made now. And this has some squiggly S's on the side. So I love this pen so much. It is so unique. I honestly did not pay attention to that detail when I bought the pen. I was just so excited to get this pen in the perfect balance of beige and black, and in a good price point I was willing to pay. Of course, when I open the window, the sirens are going off. So that was the third pen. Somewhere in here is going to be where I started collecting Pro Gear Slims, but I've since sold all of those. So let's see. Next would be my Sailor Cafe Crema. I was so happy with this pen. At the time, it was the most expensive pen in my collection, the most I'd ever spent on a pen, and that was crazy to me. This is in a fine nib. And then after that, I think I got this pen next. This is a special pen designed for Pen Boutique with Sailor. It is a Sailor 1911 large, and I have this in an extra fine nib. The colorway is called 𝘕𝘓𝘕. Next is, I think, this Pro Gear Slim Mango Nuts that I was able to add to my collection. I really loved this pen. I just couldn't justify buying it for full retail price. I was really lucky to be able to score this in a D-stash, and this is where my love for medium fine nibs started. So this was my first medium fine nib that I really enjoyed. This one, my original pen, was a medium fine, but it wrote like a fine. It was really dry. I think something was ultimately wrong with the first nib that I had, and so once I experienced this, either this is a more juicy flowing nib, I just realized that I actually really enjoy medium fine. After this pen, I was able to get my second Pro Gear size. This I purchased off a D-stash as well, off Reddit, and this is the Sailor Pro Gear and 𝘕𝘓𝘕 collaboration pen in the color turquoise. This was my first bicolor nib and my first medium nib. I also have suspicion that this pen was smoothed and tuned because it writes really juicy for a medium nib and can handle shimmer inks really well. I have been able to ink this with shimmer for 2 weeks, no problem, no clogging, and cleans really easily. So I have suspicions that this was maybe tuned and smooth by the previous owner, but I really love how it writes. And this is what always gets me curious to own another medium nib. Next here, this is definitely my most expensive pen in my collection. This is the Sailor Pro Gear and Yoseka collaboration in the color Home. It has so many different qualities to it, with a clear olive finial, a clear transparent with gold glitter cap. Then you have like a beige gold grip here, and then the body is a nice cream. It looks very similar to the Cafe Crema one until you put it up together, and it's more of like a champagne color, and then you've got the olive finial here too. What I love about this pen is really the story of it, and then kind of the transparency of Yoseka and just how great of a company they are and handling the whole fiasco of this pen. Ultimately, I decided to go with the lighter gold trim. The original was supposed to have a bicolor nib with the yellow gold, and I thought I was so diehard for the yellow gold at the beginning, but because so many of my pens until this point were yellow gold, I decided it was time to introduce a light champagne gold to my collection, and so that's why I opted for this gold version of the Yoseka Home pen. Then I added the Sailor. You can see here the progression of Sailor ever since I got the Cafe Crema there. But this is the Sailor Pro Gear Christmas Spice Tea. and I was able to purchase this from Endless Pens. I am no way sponsored by Endless Pens, but you really have to check out their VIP program. They have the best price points for brand new overseas edition sailors, and so this has probably been my most affordable Pro Gear 21K sailor. This is in a medium fine nib. Next here is the Sailor 𝘕𝘓𝘕𝘳𝘳𝘠 collaboration pen, a company in Japan, and this has a very special nib engraving. This is one of my first pens with a nib engraving, and this has sakura blossoms on it. The pen colorway is called Kubo Sakura, and I just love the transparent finials on this. This is in a medium fine nib. I believe the engraving for the nib size is on the side, just like the regular sailor designs. In between here, around the timing of this slim is when I collected 3 other Pro Gear slims and then sold them all around this time. So if I had still had those would have been inserted somewhere around here. And as you can see, I really fell in love with the Pro Gear size. Adding another Pro Gear here, the other pen to the Sailor 𝘕𝘓𝘕𝘳𝘠 collaboration. This one is called Snow Ginzan Gray, and this is my one and only rhodium trim pen, and I think it looks so good with blue. A lot of dusty blue pens I think just look so great with rhodium trim. One pen that I do really love the look of is Yoseka's Refresh pen, but I don't know, maybe one day. It's got a lot of ink here. My pen pouch actually fell, not a far distance, but it did shake up a lot of my pens, and so they are got some ink leaking in the caps that I need to clean up. It's hard to believe that this is the progression of my pens, because I feel like I've had all of these for so long, and these next pens I've just acquired in the last couple months. My progression and spacing of pens is starting to slow down at this point. So the next pen I acquired is my first TWSBI Eco. Believe it or not, I'm starting to get into the TWSBI Ecos after acquiring all these pens. And I know that these are a lot more luxurious in price point, whereas the TWSBI Eco is a very beginner friendly pen. I wanted to purchase this for the colorway, and I knew this was the best chance for me to try out a custom nib. So I ordered mine from Pen Rum. Kirk Spear is the owner and grinds the pens, and this one I got in a extra fine nib with a custom architect grind, and love it so much. The pen after this, so this I think was the first pen of the year that I purchased. The next pen of 2024 I purchased is my first Shape of Heart, my second Platinum 3776 Century, and this is the Chai Latte with rose gold trim, and this is my first medium platinum pen, my only second medium pen overall in my full collection, and I'm really happy with the medium nib. I would say that a platinum medium is most similar to a sailor medium fine, so it's not as juicy as this medium sailor that I have, though I do still suspect that this was tuned and smoothed, and so it's a lot wetter maybe than a traditional sailor medium. This platinum meteor writes very similarly to all of my medium fine sailors, and I'm really happy with this. And the most recent pen that I've just acquired within the last week is the TWSBI Eco Cafe Bronze. I think this shade of pen is so unique. I would say that what my camera is picking up is pretty accurate. It's really hard when it photographs because it comes out a lot darker. But I would say it's like resembles a caramel candy, a milk tea kind of shade. I know a lot of people were upset by the name because it's called cafe and it's not, you know, the brown shade we associate to cafe. But I am an espresso lover, and so if you're familiar with espresso shots being pulled, the crema at the top of an espresso shot, if you pull an espresso shot really well, is actually this color. And I think that's where 𝘕𝑗𝑏 really got the name of this pen for, because if you see the kind of latte art that they advertise with this pen, the crema on top is very similar to this orangey brown color. So that is the most recent pen that I acquired in my collection. I do have 2 more pens that they're still part of my fountain pen family, but I don't really like include them in the bunch. I feel bad for saying that. This here is my Moon Man pen, or Mahjong is the more commonly known brand, and I had this pen for a really long time. This pen was gifted to me in the very beginning of my fountain pen journey. It came with extra fine nib by Mahjong, but it was really, really wet and juicy. It seriously wrote like a broad nib, and I did not like it at all. I very recently purchased the Pilot Vanishing Point nib unit. This is in the black matte color, and I got it in extra fine. I bought it from Pen Boutique, and now I love this pen. It feels like, I call it my vanishing point, but it's not a real vanishing point body, but the nib is 18K vanishing point nib, and I love it so much. So it's technically a newer purchase for me because I just bought the nib unit, and that's what made me love this pen. Although this pen truly belongs somewhere over here because that's when it was gifted to me. And then this 𝘕𝘂, I honestly always forget about it. I feel so bad. I love the colorway of this pen. This was truly an impulse buy for me. I was buying other things and just kind of added this into the cart. It's always like a dry start. I don't think it has the best seal. I have a pretty wet, juicy ink in it, but it always comes out really hard to write with, so I rarely ever pick up this pen. I should probably clean the ink out of it, but this pen belongs somewhere before 2024 pens because I got this with a Christmas gift, so somewhere around here, but I think it looks best on the end there as a mini. So that is the only mini size I have, and it's kind of like a full circle moment between like the black and white there. So that is my full fountain pen collection. I said 16. Let's see if it's really 16. Yep, 16 pens. I hope you enjoyed this full video. Finally, I have some kind of fountain pen collection video on here. If you have any questions, you can definitely ask me in the comments. I am very transparent in terms of what I paid for these pens, so if you'd like to ask, you can definitely ask, and I'll send you to where I purchased these pens. A lot of these pens were for a great value. Let's see, I'll do it really fast. Amazon, eBay. This one was actually from an Instagram seller who had direct contact from the person who designed the pen. This was Pen Boutique. This was from an Instagram seller, Reddit seller. This was directly from Yoseka. Endless Pens. These two were directly from 𝘕𝘂 𝘕𝑗𝑏, because I purchased these two with grinds, I purchased them directly from Pen Realm. This I purchased directly from Pen Star Platinum Japan's website, Amazon, and then AliExpress. So there you go. And feel free to leave me a comment of what you think about my pen collection. How did you like my video? And any thoughts you have on some of my answers to the 8 pen question. I can't wait to revisit this video next year and see how much of my pen and ink preferences have changed and how much my pen collection has grown, because I definitely anticipate this collection growing in size instead of shrinking in size. That's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.